25 years ago, my moving trucks moved up into this village called Azurest, which is part of the village of Sag Harbor in the town of East Hampton. It was the date of the 50th anniversary of Azurest, and people were in the parking lot, had this beautiful dinner with white tablecloths, and my moving trucks were moving in. My little boys were 2 and 4, and they jumped out at our new home on Meredith Avenue, which I later learned was the sister of the founder, who was Maud Terry, an African-American woman who 75 years ago, when African Americans couldn't go to resorts and vacation spots, bought the land from a man named Mr. Gale. And so now 300 homes later, our village is thriving and alive, and we're celebrating the 75th anniversary of Azurest, an historically African American community in the village of Sag Harbor in the town of East Hampton. How I have loved living there. It's a beach town. It's a resort town. It's a town where our villagers love one another, look out for one another. Our little boys grew up with other little boys and girls, and everyone looked out for each other's children. We looked out for each other's homes. When I go away, not only do they house sit, but they plant sit for me so that my plants won't be without water. And it's that kind of love feast and love fest. When I barbecue, the people on the other side of me say, you want a burger? Or they'll ask me for a burger. Can our kids swim in your pool? Can my kids come over to your fish fry? And it's been that wonderful, wonderful experience. So we're just celebrating our 75th anniversary. I'm an honoree for our evening of elegance from 6 to 10 at the Bridgehampton Center. And it's a wonderful time when all of the families came back together, really a family reunion. So I'm thankful for being an honoree, but most of all, I am thankful that I'm a villager, that I am one who's a resident of Azurest. Maud Terry, and I live on her sister's block, Meredith. And Azurest came from the color of the sea, the waters that abide. Azure Rest, a place for us to rest, a place for us to recreate, a place for us to vacation. I've learned one of the definitions of recreation is recreation, so that we have time for all that we've poured out to be poured back into us by our Creator. And vacation means you got to vacate that busyness and the noisiness of the places that we come from and vacate those premises so that you have a place of peace and serenity. And that's what Azurest has been for me. I either walk to the beach and just sit by the water, I swim in the pool and swim in the water, or I'll go to Noyak Beach. Whatever it is, we go out for dinner, we play bid whist, we have so much fun together, and that is my town. I was so fortunate because I became the first African American woman in the state of New York, but certainly from Azurest, to become the U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom in the Obama administration. And my town came together and they purchased a bench that they dedicated to me in front of 42 Main Street in the village of Sag Harbor. So when you're walking that way, please take a seat on my bench and take a picture. It has on there a plaque that this is dedicated to the first African American and the first woman to be U.S. Ambassador at Large for International Religious Freedom, the Obama administration. And my town not only came out for that dedication, they also came out when I was sworn in by Hillary Clinton, who was Secretary of State. They came by train, they came by car, they came by plane, and they packed the Secretary of State's office at the U.S. State Department, and I was overjoyed to have my villagers with me. But not only that, they gave me a luncheon on my way for my Senate confirmation hearings to make sure that the women knew that they were with me when I sat down at those tables for those confirmation hearings. So we have been together on this journey. 25 years have we been homeowners, and now we're passing it on to our children that they may be homeowners, and we hope for generations to come that they will be homeowners. So I'm coming in as a new resident, but there have been people who've been there 3, 4, and 5 generations. And so I had a chance to speak with Maud Terry, our founder's oldest grandson. We hang out with her grandchildren, her great uncles, and her nephews and her great nephews. And we all are so excited and delighted and ignited to be part of this village. And so I want you to take a picture on my bench. I hope that you'll really be impressed by it, but most of all that you'll be refreshed by it, It's almost next to Schiavone's, but it's in front of 42 Main Street. But more than that, guess what happened? Sag Harbor Cinema also did a little blurb. So sometimes when you're waiting for those next films to come in and you see the trailer, they made a trailer about my bench. And so it is my excitement and delight to not only be the host of Live with Sujay, but let you know that we're all the way live and in living color, and I'm part of this wonderful village. So celebrate with us this 75th year. We have a short video that we hope that will capture your attention with some of the oldest living residents of our village. And you're going to see that on the village. You're going to see some of the history of Maud Terry, where we left your mark, where she began her first building. We're going to see all of the delight and some of the things we do to still have fun in our area. So we've been designated a historically African American village and community. And I hope that by the time we share together in this show, that you also will fall in love with this wonderful place that I now call home. So thank you for joining us with Live with Sujay. You'll be able to see this not only on LTV, but wherever this can be shown on YouTube. You'll be able to see it on our webinars, LTV, public access, and we hope that you'll be able to see it in many places around the nation and around the globe. Because as my position, I had to go around the globe, and I always want them to know where I am. So you know, it says, be so ever humble, there's no place like home. And so I am honored. I am excited to have my home as a historically African American village in the village of Sag Harbor, the town of East Hampton, a place that we call Azurest. Stay tuned.
Good morning to everybody. My name is Fred Richards. I am the oldest of Maud K. Terry. She is my grandmother.
My name is Stan Gale, and I'm the grandson of Daniel Gale and Elsie Gale, the owners of the property, my grandparents. Back in the 30s, a young Maud Terry used to go from her Eastville property down to the water in Sag Harbor, and she crossed this 20-acre parcel of land, an old Indian trail, as a matter of fact. And creatively, she found a way to contact my grandmother. Elsie Gale was on the deed, and Maud thought, what a wonderful place for my friends and brethren and family from Brooklyn to come out and buy a lot.
Mrs. Terry selected the name Azurest after considering heavenly peace, blue rest, and blue haven, and Azurest. From these descriptions and phrases, the name Azurest was then coined. Azurest streets were named by Mrs. Terry in honor of her family and the heritage of African Americans and Native Americans in Sag Harbor. The Indian trails became Terry Drive, Richards Drive, and Meredith Avenue for members of Mrs. Terry's family. Walker Avenue and Milton Avenue memorialized Black pilots of whaling ships. Cuffey Drive honored an old Sag Harbor Native American family of whaler Jason James Cuffey and son Nathan J. Cuffey. Later, at the insistence of the Gale family, Mrs. Terry, along with James Smith and Dorothy Spalding, attempted to sell all of the lots, and to date, all of the lots are sold.
welcome to 11963. I know you know that other zip code, but we're 11963. We're the village of Sag Harbor, the town of East Hampton, and we are now in Azurest, and we are in the home of the Arringtons, the Williams, the Reeds, Gayle, Gayle, and Joe Graves, the Davises, the Cotmans, the St. Bernards. Thank you for sharing this time with us. We're in the home of Dr. Hamill and Derry Willoughby and family, and we're in Azurest, a historically African American community in the village of Sag Harbor. Final question. What do you hope folks learn or know about Sag Harbor?
Well, I think that one of the important aspects is that it is a Black historical area, and that's kind of initiates from Eastville, where many of the homes there were built in the 19th century, and they're still here. But the aspect that we were able to, in this village, to have a Black community and to be here and felt safe, and that we're still trying to maintain the integrity of the area and to keep it that is a friendly area, and people respect us and will take care to make sure that we are all people.
And, you know, I just want people to realize we are a typical, average African American family who has survived under the circumstances. And we pray that, as our parents prayed for us, things will be better for them. But they are activists, so we know things will be better.
I think the message would be that to find experiences or places or groups or organizations that allow you to experience Black people from all walks of life. Wherever we live, we give.
Yes.
And whatever the structure or vehicle is to help the community come together or move forward, we're always a part of that. You know, if we're having an event, you know, we come, we volunteer, we help put the chairs up, whatever it is that needs to be done.
I love that. So wherever we live, we give, and being part of the community spirit.
I love the idea that lots of younger families are interested in being part of this neighborhood, and that's across the board. You know, the children playing on the beach, and you see all shades and colors.
Yes.
And that's what it's about.
Exactly.
It's about creating a place where people are, where you have a true community. I think what's so unique about Azurest and many of the other communities here is the fact that we are the original. There wasn't anybody here before. It's not like a Bedford-Stuyvesant or a Harlem. We had this originally, and that's why it's so critical and so important that we maintain that. This was an area that no one else was interested in.
Right.
And so I'm very proud, and I'm very thankful to be here and be a part of it.
This has always been kind of like that place where, this is always my happy place, to be perfectly honest. This is just that place where I could just be Terrence.
And every parent is everybody's parent.
Oh yeah.
What do you remember about the founders? Do you remember the founders? And family? Are their descendants?
I grew up with their descendants.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So I grew up with the Richards, you know, clan, but they were, you know, like all of our parents were all together.
Yes.
So the founders were really, they were my grandmother's, you know, peer group or older.
Right.
So, you know, actually they were a little bit older than my grandmother, to be perfectly honest. So we kind of, you know, grandmother kind of came in between, and then their all children were my parents' peer group. So I kind of went through a lot of iterations of what Sag Harbor is and how Azurest has grown and developed. You know, so I've kind of seen it all. When I was a kid, you know, the only boats you really saw out there were, you know, the scallopers.
Yeah. What would make a difference for you in terms of these generations that are coming into Sag Harbor? Do you see differences with, there's now 3 generations later, do you see differences, or what would you tell the newcomers
I
coming
see
in?
differences, but I just hope they hold on to the place, really. That's the main thing.
Yes.
Keep it.
Yes,
Really.
try to keep it in the
Keep it in
family.
the family, yeah.
Definitely.
So,
What do you want to say to Renee and her husband Edward in terms of helping pull Sands together and the team?
they're doing such a great job. They really are. All of you are doing such a great job, so.
Well, we have you to thank to all of our elders. You have been so warm and welcoming to us. My family was not a Sag Harbor family historically, but when we came in, we just feel like you're
Oh, yeah,
ours,
yeah.
and that's so important to
So
us.
hopefully keep the whole area the way it is right now. So please keep keep Sag Harbor the way it is. I mean, keep it and make it better. That's what I would say.
What do you tell people about Sag Harbor, about our cultural history, our African American history? What would you tell people about Sag Harbor who are having children for generations following?
I would say it's about ownership of who you are and sharing that. I would say it's about it's about generations coming together, overlapping, and enjoying all that this heritage brings. It's about friendship. It's about family. It's about love. And
what would you tell the generations now in terms of why it's important to have an Azurest, why it's important to have a Sag Harbor?
Well, I think it's very rare and unique to have this sense of community. I know that other locations exist, and in many cases it's been disbanded, like in Idlewild in Michigan and some areas in Martha's Vineyard, certainly in South Carolina. And in a number of cases, the property values go up, and then, the Black families leave for whatever reason or circumstances. And so I think that to continue on with as you've mentioned before, when you first come in, you're greeted by that Azurest sign with the historically Black neighborhood. And I think that there's something to be saved there.
I feel as though our parents should just feel such pride in that we were able to, they gave us this whole lifestyle, this whole thing, and it's still here. Folks, I appreciate that this community has given my children the opportunity to have a Tom Sawyer childhood.
Yes.
Unlike, this is not a camp.
Right.
Our kids didn't go to camp. They were here.
Yes.
And they could roam these woods. They could roam into town. And I can say that even if there was de facto segregation, it's not something that affected them because they didn't realize it, that they could get on their bike, ride to town. As they got older, they would ride their bikes to Amagansett to go to the beach and roam through the woods. When houses were being built, our boys were in those houses, and even the contractors used to leave them nails and wood and stuff so they could build. I have pictures of tree houses that these boys built.
How wonderful was that?
And that's it. Their connection is just like that, and in need, whether they come or call. It's wonderful.
So talk to me. We come into our communities as a historically African American community.
Yes.
What does that mean to you? Is that important? What's the significance?
Well, the significance for me is just the fact that the community itself has been here as long as it has, and that people have established, friendships and long-term relationships here. And it's just wonderful to have that, sort of as a constant touchstone in one's life. So that's what when I see pull up on Milton Avenue, when I see that sign, it's just, it's home. That's what it symbolizes to me.
And it's intergenerational. So you have your parents. So you're retired now from dentistry.
Yes, I'm retired now from dentistry.
So do you plan to stay in Sag Harbor and hope the future generations of your family will come here as well?
Well, yes, have been enjoying my retirement. We are here, during the summer, And I do hope, out of my family, I'm the one right now that comes out here the most. I
Okay.
do hope that perhaps my other sister, and I've been trying to get my mother out here. She's still here. She's 94. She just turned 94 in June. But sometimes she does say the car ride is a little long for her because
Sure.
we are in New Jersey. But yes, I'm hoping that the neighborhood will continue, and just the flow and the vibe of the historic and just going on to perpetuity. I hope that goes on.
What does it feel like to see now another generation being educated, and what are your hopes for them?
Well, just keep going and positive, positive attitude, and do what they got to do. They know they have to, take care of business like, we did. We did, a lot of sacrifice.
Yes,
So,
yes.
it's just what they have to do. They got to do. They got to be.
Got to be on
adults.
point to be able to go
They got to
forward.
be adults.
Exactly.
And do what they got to do. And so.
So, Gail, let me ask you this. What are lessons from Nineveh, Azurest, Sag Harbor that you learned that you've applied for the rest of your life?
Oh gosh, let me think. Well, just being friendly, being loving with neighbors.
Mm-hmm.
We have so many good friends in this neighborhood that we
Yes.
can look out for each other.
Yes.
And that's what I want my children to do, is to be looking out for the other kids. You see somebody else's child out on the street, and if they get hurt, or give them inspiration, direction, just being a good neighbor. Yeah.
So if you had one thought you would want to say to the founders of this wonderful community, what would it be?
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
yes.
Thank you for the legacy of our African American
And
history.
holding together.
And pulling together.
Pulling together.
Looking out for each
I
other.
love that.
Yes, yes.
That's what I love about this neighborhood.
Yeah.
That we
You know,
work
they-
together.
That we
That's
work
right.
together.
There is a strong tie to Sag Harbor because so many of the original generations and Ray Redhead's father was one of the also very social,
Yes.
dynamic leaders of the community. That I think people get mature. They go to college. They might start pursuing their careers, but I think they never can replace the environment they had here. So it draws them back.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of people, and my hope is that Michael and his family will stay here, and we'll need to expand the house, but we'll do that
I love it. I love it.
because there's a real. We talk about intergenerational transfer of wealth.
Yes.
There's also that of community and of spirit.
I love it.
As I said, people came out here to find commonality, to enjoy, and to separate themselves from some of the discrimination that was going on at the time. They created a community that they wanted to, the way they wanted to, and in spite of lack of access to mortgages and bank loans, a lot of them found creative ways to purchase and build their homes.
And make it happen.
And make it happen.
Mhm.
And that spirit has continued. I think at one time, segregation kept this an exclusively African American community. Now that those sort of lines aren't as strong as they are, and we have new members moving in, but we also have a resurgence of that community spirit.
That's awesome.
And that's a really wonderful thing. New members are welcome, historic members are welcome, and I think this sort of atmosphere will continue.
So talk to us about the generations you've seen flow through here in your years here.
Oh my goodness, it's so amazing. And to me, the connection of generations, and when you see the elders, this year I started to put that this table was reserved for the elders, and I didn't do it, but they knew their table in Oh, their yes. space. And let me tell you, they were watching us, how we were carrying on a tradition that they started to preserve this history, and that's why Eastville Community Historical Society even exists. They started because they wanted to make sure that we preserve what they started for us. And that's why the Fish Fry started.
So not only am I talking to someone who keeps history, but I'm also sitting with someone who is history. So we want to thank you for preserving it, all the rich nuggets that you've given us today. If you'll join me and just look at that camera there, and as I say 3, 2, 1, we say happy 75th anniversary Azurest. Can you help me? 3, 2, 1. Happy 75th anniversary, Azurest.
We are the Davis family. Happy 75th anniversary, Azurest.
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 Happy 75th.
Bad news, talking this and that. Well, give me all you got and don't hold it back.
Happy 75th anniversary, Azurest.
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 We're the Simpson family. Happy 75th anniversary, Azurest. Woo!
Clap along if you know what happiness is to you.
Happy 75th anniversary, Azurest. Well, thank you for sharing this time with me. This has been awesome, and thank you for sharing this time with us. And we're in Azurest, a historically African American community in the village of Sag Harbor. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Bring me down, 'cause love is too high.